Brock. How we doing? Good. How's everybody's NCAA bracket doing? Not so good after this afternoon, I'll bet. Good. Well, it's a pleasure to be with you today, and especially to talk about something that's kind of a passion of mine. The topic, as you saw on your materials, is we either get better or worse, we never stay the same. And what I'm going to tell you about that before we go any further is that concept is such that it will not let you off the hook. Once I explain that to someone, once I explain it to our students at Xavier, once I explain it to our faculty there, once I explain it to our coaching staff, and once I explained it to our athletes when I was coaching, all of a sudden they had the responsibility to get better, because there's really no staying in between. I guess I would ask all of us in the room, and it's sort of a rhetorical question, are you the best version of the person you could be right now? Are you the best version that you'll ever be right now? And I think most of us would answer no, probably not. But the fact of the matter is, we can get there. We can get closer each and every day. Getting better or worse isn't something that just moves in one direction all the time. It fluctuates. I might be a little bit better principal today than I was on Monday. I might be a little worse principal today than I was on Monday. I might be a better father today than I'm going to be on Saturday. I might be a worse father today than I'm going to be on Saturday. But the key is to try to get the needle moving in the correct direction, in the positive direction, as much as possible. So we're going to talk a little bit about how we get that done. And I'm going to share with you that you know, when my needle started moving in that direction is when I came to the realization that I was in charge of whether I was going to be better or worse every day. And as long as I accept that and don't accept that other circumstances are going to interfere with that, then I'm going to be okay. That doesn't mean that other circumstances don't happen. It doesn't mean that things don't take place that are challenges for me. It doesn't mean that there are things that don't take place from time to time that I look at and say, how in the heck am I going to deal with this? But the reality is I have choices in life just like everybody else, and those choices are going to lead me to either become better or worse. And that's in every area of my being. I could be a better principal, a better father, a better husband, a better friend, a better son, a better neighbor, or I can be a worse one. Choice is mine. And how I try to move that needle is going to determine whether or not I'm going to move in the direction that I want to move into. There is absolutely no way that I could have accomplished the things that I've accomplished and done the things that I've done and had the opportunities that I've had without other people in my life. We're products of our experiences, and I'm no different than any one of you. And I want to share a little bit about those experiences with you and some of the people that have impacted me so that you can see some of the qualities that I think help us get that needle moving in the direction of being better each and every day. The first person I'm going to talk about is, like a lot of people do, is my dad. My dad taught me a lot of things, but one of the things he taught me was about toughness. He came to the United States from Ireland when he was an 8th grader. His family endured the famine in Ireland. They came across on, you know, it wasn't a 4-hour flight from Ireland to the U.S. in the 1930s. He was on a ship, and he swore to this day he'd never get on another ship. But he spent a lot of weeks on a ship to get across the ocean to get to the United States. And then he came here where people couldn't understand his brogue, they couldn't understand what he was saying, and he was thrown into school, and it was a difficult time for him. But he was able to persevere, and he kept getting better at things, and he became what I would consider a pretty darn successful guy. He raised a great family, he had a wonderful career in the same company for years and years, and he taught us a lot of valuable lessons. So he taught me a little bit about toughness. He also taught me a little bit about loyalty. When I was a sophomore in high school, in between sophomore and junior year, my mom was committed to a mental institution for about a year. And, you know, a lot of guys that had gone through what he had gone through prior to that time, not to mention, you know, I mean, all the things that led to that, not to mention the time that she spent there, a lot of guys would have booked out of there and said, no, I didn't sign up for this, I'm gone. But what he taught me is when he said for better or worse, it meant for better or worse. So he taught me a great deal of loyalty, and he taught me that family comes first and that we take care of business. The other thing he taught me was that sometimes you got to do things that you really don't want to do in order to improve yourself. He and my counselor, Brother John Delfonso, when I was in high school, decided that if I was ever going to grow up, if I was ever going to become anything, I needed to get away from my buddies. And they were probably right, although I didn't agree with them at the time. I'm reconnected to those buddies, by the way. Thank you, Facebook. It's been a wonderful thing. But the reality is that I needed to get away. So they decided that it would be good for me if I was going to go to college, and I was the first one in our family on either side to do that I needed to go out, go away, somewhere where I wouldn't come home every weekend. And that's how I ended up in Iowa. I went to Simpson College. And after Simpson, I found a teaching job in Maxwell, and after that, I went to Wahlert and then to Xavier. So I've been in Iowa because Brother John and my dad decided that I needed to grow up and I needed to get away from my buddies and develop myself a little bit. And I still remember my dad saying, when you grow up, you can come back. I'm still here. That part of it, has its own story. But I think that was important to him. The other thing that was important to him is to put other people first and not take the glory yourself. Be as humble as you possibly can. And I try to this day to live that out. The next person I think was really important was a guy I grew up with. One of those same guys I was supposed to get away from. His name was Kurt Wise. Kurt Wise was the best basketball player on the playground. And basketball was kind of an important thing to me when I was growing up. I ended up playing basketball at Simpson, and I coached it a little bit. But the thing was, Kurt Wise, everybody knew. And those were the days where you chose sides, and and everybody got picked, first, middle, last, etc. And my mom didn't go up and yell at the captains for not picking me first, that kind of stuff. So those were the days when everybody sort of knew what the pecking order was, and we knew Kurt Wise was the best basketball player there. And I wanted to be more like Kurt Wise. And I remember Kurt every so often would say, hey, play me one-on-one. And my answer was, I'm not going to play you, I can't beat you. And his answer to me was, how are you ever going to beat me if you don't play me? And so what he taught me was, you got to challenge yourself. You got to go above and beyond your comfort zone. You cannot do what you feel you are almost guaranteed to succeed at. There were a lot of guys on the playground I could have played and beat every day, but I wasn't going to get any better doing that. And so Kurt took me aside, and really he and I did a lot of those things together. And he also taught me that getting better has no business hours. We used to play 9, 10 o'clock at night on the playground with this little bitty light up there, and we'd play games to 100, and we had a ball, but he taught me that was really important. The other thing he taught me was to have fun at work. Kurt got me my first job in high school. We worked a little nursery together, and we had a ball. And it wasn't fun work, but we had a great time. So what he taught me was, you can have a great time at work as long as you enjoy the people you're working with. And I remember to this day when I was in an evaluator training as an athletic director, I remember a group of superintendents over here talking, and I was talking to my group, and I could hear these guys, and one of them said, why anyone in their right mind would ever want to be a principal of a high school, I just don't know. And I remember hearing that and going, that's right, because I'm an athletic director. I'm not worried. And that guy, his voice rings in my ears about 3 times a week as I hear that. But the deal is that actually being a principal is fun, and it's fun not because of the work that's involved, it's fun because of the people that I'm around. It's fun because I'm around 15, 16, 17, and 18-year-old kids who have an incredible amount of energy and do the craziest things. And I've got an administrative team that I work with that I just love, and I've got a faculty that's just phenomenal. And they work day in and day night, day in and out to get better and better at what they do. So Kurt Wise was a big one. Father Joe Herard. Who knows Father Herard? Does anybody in here know Father Herard? He was the principal at Wahlert when I got to Dubuque. Here's a story, real quick. Father Herard's best friend in the world was Father Tom Keating. Have you ever driven by Holy Ghost? See the Keating Center? Okay, Father Tom Keating, that's who it's named after. Father Tom and Joe Herard were great friends. And Father Herard spent a lot of time, they went to a lot of games, they did a lot of traveling. Father Tom Keating passed away in March of 1980. Tom Keating applied for a job at Wahlert in April of 1980. He had to interview me. There's just no way he could not interview me. So he did. So I got the job at Wahlert after an interview. They loved my wife, and they thought, well, if we want her, we got to bring him. So there I was. So that went well. But Father Herard taught me a lot of things. But probably the most important thing was he put me in leadership positions before I thought I was ready. And I remember him saying to me, Tom, if everybody waited until they were ready to do things, nothing would get done. And as luck would have it, or as weirdness would have it, this afternoon I was kind of flipping through Twitter, and one of the things I came across on Twitter is, if you wait until you're ready, you're going to wait your whole lifetime. And so the deal is, he taught me that you've got to step beyond what you think you can do. And if I'm ever going to get better, if I'm going to keep moving that needle in the right direction, I cannot focus on being comfortable. I've got to focus on stretching myself a little bit, and that's what we tell our students all the time. You got to stretch yourself. We tell our freshmen every year, there will be pain, there will be anxiety, there will be difficulty, but you can overcome it. Another person that really had an impact on me was Steve Lowe. Steve Lowe was the volleyball coach at the University of Wisconsin, and Steve died very young and way too soon in 1992. Steve came from the West Coast. I did a clinic with Steve and another guy by the name of Steve Shondell, and before I went on, or before Steve Shondell went on, Steve Lowe had done his thing. Steve Shondell, who coached at Muncie Burris, very successful coach, he told us that he needed to tell us the story about Steve Lowe. And what he said was he, meaning Steve Shondell, had an All-American high school player the year before. She went to Wisconsin, never played a point the whole year. And he asked her after the season, how did it go? And she said, it was the best volleyball experience I've ever had. And he said, how could that be? You never played. She said, if you walked into our gym, you would never know that I was not on the starting team. If you listened to him talk to me, you would never know that I wasn't an All-American. If you watched him coach me, you would never know that I was never going to get on the floor. And that struck me. And I thought, you know what? I need to start paying a little bit more attention to the players who aren't on the floor all the time. And the minute I decided to do that, I had a wonderful coaching experience. The kids had more fun. The starters, the kids who played all the time, they trusted me more. And the reason they trusted me more is because they felt like, you don't like us because we're good. You like us because you like us. And that's what, and it was amazing. The number of parent phone calls went way down. The number of kids quitting went way down. The number of kids whining went way down. It just was such a simple concept, and it took me a long time to get to that point. So I preach that to our teachers all the time. Look at your students. You know, it's easy to really like that student that raises their hand all the time, that gets involved, turns into great paper. But the reality is sometimes we've got to pay attention to the strugglers and help them. The kids who maybe don't look like everybody else, kids that don't smell like everybody else, the kids that don't work as hard as everybody else does. Our students are doing a little thing in the newspaper this week that says, what student at Xavier were you most like? You know, when you were in high school? I refuse to answer that question so far. Well, the last person I'm going to tell you about is a guy by the name of John Cook. John is the head coach at the University of Nebraska. He taught me the concept of you either get better or worse. You never stay the same. He was the first guy to ever say that to me. His big thing was evaluation. Find a way to evaluate what you're doing. If you knew me as a volleyball coach, you would know I was stat crazy. I was number crazy. I found different ways to look at numbers and crunch them and find out what combinations work best. I still to this day do that, even as a principal, and try to find the data and take a look at it and crunch it and find a way to evaluate. We do a lot of things at Xavier. We do senior exit surveys, senior parent exit surveys, et cetera, to find out what people think about us. We did a visioning process about 5 years ago. We had a guy from Iowa State come in. Fabulous guy, Jeff Johnson. He brought in 21 focus groups, interviewed them individually without any of us there, put a big vision report together, and we put a great plan together to find out what do we do well, what don't we do so well, and what things have we not even thought about yet. I asked my faculty to do the same thing. I had a faculty member that told me one time, you know, the first 2 years you were here, I thought we were the worst faculty in the world. He said, but now I get it. I understand that you saw things in us we didn't even see in ourselves. And you challenged us to go beyond what we were comfortable doing, and you challenged us to become the kind of faculty members that we could be. We do some student feedback sheets on our teachers. We let students give feedback. A lot of places do. And I had some people in my office crying when I reviewed them with them. And I said, well, this is nothing to cry about. It's something to get better with. And so I had a success story even this morning. One of those guys came in. He got ripped last year. We had a good talk at the beginning of the year. He came in after today. As a matter of fact, this morning, he said, I had a parent in my room last night at conferences who said my daughter, same parent that ripped me last year, said my daughter absolutely loves it this year. So he changed. He got the information. Somebody said, ouch. He said, I'm sorry, and he redid his way of doing things, and he became a much, much better teacher. So the whole deal is this. Once you establish a culture of we either get better or worse, once you establish a culture of continuous improvement, I think it gets easy. We didn't need, at Xavier or at Wahlert, when I coached volleyball, we didn't need an action plan anymore. Our kids got it. They knew exactly what it meant. They knew how to handle themselves when they walked into a gym. We wore shirts on the back. You ever see teams that wear shirts and they have these sayings on the back? You know that? You know what ones I can't stand? I really apologize if anybody in here. The ones that you have to follow the kid to read it because it takes so long to read it because it's about this long, you know, yo through the valley of death I go, et cetera. I don't like it. We just had something that said, play like an eagle. And everybody knew what that meant. Everybody in our program knew exactly what we were talking about because it was a culture of we were going to play better tonight than we did last night. We were going to play better in the next game than we did the game before. We were going to play better in this possession than we did the possession before that. I think that's a culture that's truly, truly needed. I am a long way from where I was when I was a high school kid. Thank God. My friends don't believe I'm a principal. They think I made it up, I created this website, and it's all a farce. But the reality is that I had a lot of people help me along the way, and it was all based on this whole concept of move the needle in the right direction. I think if you develop the philosophy of you either get better or worse, and you have control over it, you will be amazed at the results that you will find. It's been a pleasure to be with you today. Enjoy the rest of your session.